it's in the village. This is the time now we are almost graduating into adulthood through circumcision. There's some customary rites that goes along with that. And so what happens in this situation is that in the Maasai, people are grouped in age according to their ages and sexes. And the uninitiated boys, we are almost graduating into adulthood, are always the least in the hierarchy. So I will read now. I'll say, as growing boys, we mostly enjoy participating in meat feasts. The villagers or the hosts of the feast kill livestock such as cows and sheep for the villagers to eat during the celebrations. The people shared the meat in groups according to their sexes and ages. The uninitiated boys had the left side of the cow's rib and the neck bone. So it was the duty of the warriors to roast the ribs for them during the day and ensure that they shared the ribs amicably. Since the young, inexperienced, and disorganized boys often allow the neck bone to get partially cooked. Now the boys also cook the neck as a pastime during the night. Since the boys are inexperienced, with their inexperience and disorganization, often allow the neck bone to get partially cooked before wrestling it out amongst themselves, each struggled to bite off a ripping side of the meat as much as they could. They would then let the bone roast some more before repeatedly fighting it out again and again while singing the boys' song, which goes like this. Into yang nawe kenyi nago linkidomo. Erumuta yo gengi magimariri emonita na diengima. Which literally means our guards of monkeys with stiff necks, with stiff tails. Smoke is irritating our eyes as we look over an intestine that is burning over a fire. So in conclusion, I would say I find the last part particularly relevant today in this forum, especially when the world is experiencing unprecedented high levels of immigration. The phenomenon has increasingly necessitated for the need of sharing each other's individual or communal values. It has provided us with the opportunity of acknowledging our differences. Knowing and understanding each other's historical background will enable us to understand and respect each other. And in so doing, we will likely help in reducing the likelihood of possible conflicts and tension between us in future. On the other hand, failure to do this will surely leave us lamenting the sadness that would come with it, just like the way the boys sang the song. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. That was great. You know, these days cultural differences are leading to conflicts all over the world. And your cultural differences were in your home. You had the proud, strong Maasai warrior for a father, and you had the Kikuyu mother, who's Bantu. Is that part of it?
Yes.
Bantu. And the Maasai were polygamous, and the Kikuyu were traditionally the woman would be the dominant force and the leader of the household. So how the hell did that work in your house?
There was a lot of fights. Because the mother wouldn't, my my mother and another mother, the second one, whom we came to refer to as our little mother, was also Kikuyu. So my father could not, at some point he was not able to put up the fight, so he had to get married to a Maasai.
Okay, I had a question about the meat. The boys, and this was during the period of circumcision at the time, they received the rib bones and the neck bones. Did the girls, what meat did the girls get?
That's a good question. The girls got the softer meat on the lower abdomen, and the boys get the front neck, and the girls got the last neck, the hinge bone of the lower vertebrae.
I see. There was one sentence I wanted you to explain, and it was, our girls are monkeys that have stiff tails. What does that mean?
It means young boys girls and boys were not allowed to associate with each other, just in case they don't do bad things. So they were supposed to maintain purity until they get initiated into adulthood. So they were separated. They were not supposed to associate. But the girls of that age, the lower the age of the boys, associated with the warriors, because those were their future wives. So the boys didn't have any girls. So they had to fantasize, think of something. So the closest they went is to our closest fellow creatures, which are monkeys.
Okay. Are there any questions from the audience? Anyone wants to ask Paul anything at all? It's a fascinating part of Africa. I've had the privilege of traveling there a little bit, and I did meet people in the Kikuyu band tribe, and so I find this conflict very interesting. Are your parents still alive?
No, they died, unfortunately. My father died. My mother died 2 years ago, and my father 3 years ago. I was here, but they were quite old. My father was 106. My mother was
106.
96. Yeah, they were 10 years apart.
Oh my God. Well, they must have been living right.
Yeah.
Good long lives.
Yeah.
How about your siblings? Do you still keep in touch with your siblings?
Yeah, I keep in touch with my siblings.
Are they in Africa?
Yeah, they are all in Africa, yes. They are, apart from one who is in the United States.
Right.
Yes.
How many siblings?
As I said, it was a big family, but in my mother's house, that's how we talk in Kenya, we were 11. 6 girls and 5 boys.
Wow.
And as I had told you, is my mother and my father shared the naming and everything. So all odd numbers had my father's the Maasai name as prominent names, and all even numbers had the female the Kikuyu names.
Yes. Keith.
I'm curious, in the West, the culture we grow up in, and to which we can be fairly blind as a result, we expect women to have a voice and to have power and hopefully equality in the family. Not always the case, but that's the general expectation, the standard. And I'm curious, in Kenya, with Western education, conducted in English, I believe, how the expectations of women in the tribe might be being affected by their inclusion in Western thought through education in English.
It's still a big fight for the women in Kenya. Especially, I would say, in my tribe, it's really hard because it's exclusively parochial. They're not supposed to make any decision because families are arranged in clans and families, and the heads of clans are men. But constitutionally, they are finding themselves also, they're going to school, they're finding themselves in decision-making places like parliament and local representation, and they are voicing. And then they are also now refusing to follow certain tradition and custom, like being married off. Because in Maasai, they used to, once they get initiated, they get married, the girls get married off, and the boys become warriors. So, but now they go to school like everybody, and they get jobs, and they choose whoever they want. The constitution allows them to get married to whoever they want. Yeah.
Any final questions? Yes.
Excuse me, how many percentage of Maasai is still living in their own villages? You are from city, right? It's not the village.
Well, it's part of the city now because it was very close to the city, but it was a village that time. And Nairobi expanded over.
I know Exile-VOICES. I visited once or twice.
Okay. I'm just very close.
Maasai tribes still there?
Yes, it's there. The Maasai start right from Nairobi all the way to Amboseli to Tanzania. So it's a very small tribe of 800 people, but they control almost half of the country in terms of land.
Yeah.
Last question? Anyone? Well, Paul, this has been really interesting. Thank you so much for your presentation. I'd like to invite our next reader up, Lydia Karpenko. Lydia is from the Ukraine. Lydia, do you want to come up to the stage, please? Lydia is an author, editor, content creator, and radio host from Ukraine. She lived and worked in Kiev. Due to the large-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russian troops, she had to move to Canada. Lydia writes about the historical and cultural ties between Canada and Ukraine, as well as articles about the life of Ukrainians during the war, and describes the life of the Ukrainian diaspora in Toronto. She has recently had a feature article published in the Globe and Mail witnessing conditions during the Russian bombardment of her city. And recently has had a second article published, which she can talk about, but you have an interning contract at the Globe and Mail now.
Yes.
It's a wonderful achievement to have that sort of connection. I mean, the Globe is arguably our best newspaper, and so that's just a wonderful accomplishment that you've done. So congratulations on that. And I'd like everybody to give a warm welcome again to Lydia. Please. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Are
coming.
you hearing me?
Yeah.
Yes, my name is Lydia and I'm from Ukraine, and in Canada I'm only 1.5 years because of the war. You know, I never dreamed to live in other countries than in Ukraine. But in one moment I understood that I can't live there. I have to save my child. And I fled my country. Now I'm here and I try to find my way. Thanks the Writers in Exile, I visited a very good and helpful workshop with Don Gilmore, Canadian writer and journalist. And I prepared a piece about how Ukrainians changed their habits during 2 years of the war. And I wrote this text special for this workshop, and after that Keith and Margot helped me to change something, and Doug Gilmore also helped me to change something and to show this piece for Globe and Mail. They decided to publish it. So thank you a lot for your help, for your support. and I want to read that piece that I wrote in early of December of last year. So some numbers, as you can understand, is changed because of the war. But its text is actual on December 2023. So, the war in Ukraine is not a reality TV show. After dinner, I usually scroll through my phone, check my email and messages, and read the news. Then I received a text message from my husband. "I'm fine," he tells me. My heart starts pounding furiously. "What's wrong?" you might ask. "Isn't that a nice message? He's okay." Well, while I'm safely in Toronto with our daughter, he is in Kyiv, Ukraine. And right now, as I'm reading his message, this city is being actively attacked by Russian missiles. On Telegram, I see pictures of destroyed residential buildings in some districts of the capital, with cars on fire. I see firemen helping people get out of ruined apartments, and teams cleaning the rubble in the hopes of finding those who did not escape. I read on and learn that Odessa, Lviv, Kherson, Kharkiv, Dnipro, Pavlograd have also been hit by rocket fire. I watch a video of rescuers carrying out a body and hear voices say, "Watch out for her legs." They are holding a 9-year-old girl. These legs should have been running along paths for many more years, going to school, college, work, rushing to a date. But they will not be able to anymore. Her mother was also found under the rubble. Only her father survived. I flip to Facebook and scroll through my feed. There is a now familiar old call post that say who's alive, who's dead, who's injured. Friends write about how they can't sleep anymore and go to work exhausted. One post reads, "Half an hour ago I was asleep in my bed, but now there is a hole instead of a wall in my house, and my sink is visible from the street." I can see the photos of the terrible destruction. The owners of the condos, like their neighbors, fortunately survived, but they are helplessly watching their old life burn down. What will happen next with them? This is an important question, and everyone will be looking for an answer. Relatives and friends of these people are already starting to collect financial aid, looking for temporary housing and donating to buy weapons for the Ukrainian army. Fatigue multiplied by anger encourages people to donate more, for example, for drones. No one is giving up. Ukrainians want only one thing: to help the attacker stop forever. I pause. Once again, I convince myself that I made the right decision to come to Canada and save my child from the war and its consequences. I'm crying with a sense of devastation, but I'm also happy that my family and friends are safe. The missile missed them for now. I write to my friend Olenka to see how she's doing. A mother of 6-year-old twins who lives in Kyiv, she begins each day monitoring the reports of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, eager for news about the situation on the battlefield. Before she takes the children to school, she checks to see if the Russians have launched warplanes with missiles. During an attack, there is a small basement to shelter in. but it only holds her immediate family. Her parents insist on staying upstairs in the house, hoping to be lucky. It's Russian roulette in more than one way. How did you spend the night? I asked my neighbor in Kiev. You know, the shelter is not closed, so we slept in the hall, she replies. Ukrainians have become familiar with the simple rule of 2 walls. In the event of shelling or explosions, you need to have at least 2 walls between you and the outside, because a missile can destroy the outer wall and debris will fly into the second wall. Dear listeners, look around and check your room. Would your walls save you? My colleague Alla, with whom I worked in radio, is now serving in the army back home. She told me she has a Spartan life, ready to go at all times. Her documents, a tourniquet, an energy bar, wet wipes, and folding toothbrush are always with her, just in case. Sometimes she must sleep where there are no walls at all, such as at the open-air training grounds or in a trench. Sleeping in a bathtub has become common for most Ukrainians today. My friend Roman saved himself this way when a Caliber cruise missile hit his yard, burning parked cars and smashing windows in neighboring condos. Ukrainians have a massive amount of rebuilding to do. So far, Russian troops have destroyed more than 170,000 buildings across the country, including residential high-rises, schools, hospitals, museums, libraries, and shops. Cities in the east of the country have been partially or completely burned and wiped off the map. Mariupol, Авдіївка, Bakhmut, Rubizhne, Popasna, and many, many more. Vladislav, a resident of ruined Irpin, told me that more than 3,000 buildings were destroyed there in the first 23 days of the war, but that he and his neighbors have since returned to their residential complex. Unit owners contributed funds to rebuild the buildings, even though they know at any moment an enemy missile can destroy them all over again. But if that happens, we will rebuild them, he said. This is our home. We have nowhere else to go. We can restore everything, but we cannot bring back those who have been killed. According to the United Nations, at least 4,100 innocent civilian lives were lost in the first months of Russia's aggressive war against Ukraine alone. Over the last 2 years, the number of civilian victims has exceeded 10,000. There are approximate figures, as there is no access to statistics on deaths in the occupied territories. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky claims that at least 31,000 Ukrainian soldiers had been killed. This number will likely increase, as it is not known how many of the 15,000 soldiers who have been reported missing are actually dead. The sound of a siren. Daily alarms have also become commonplace for Ukrainians. These sounds bring us back to reality. This is the war. It is impossible to ignore it, even in the most remote areas of the country. My friend's son, 7-year-old Miron, has had to hear it for nearly a third of his life. He has learned that when the siren sounds, he should not cry, but immediately get his backpack and go with the adults to the bomb shelter. There, everyone takes their now usual place, Someone monitors the news while someone keeps the children occupied. Often people bring water, cookies, and napkins to their bomb shelters, and usually they will leave those supplies there, knowing they will be back, maybe even the same day. Closer to the front line, the situation is much worse. People there do not have enough food. They live without electricity and heating. Many go days without water, though at least in the winter there is a natural alternative: snow and icicles, which thirsty people have been forced to melt. It has all been very hard to get used to, but some Ukrainians don't want to leave for calmer areas. Most of them are older and feel it would be too difficult to begin a new life in a new place. But even going outside at all can be difficult. The first thing my friend Alexandra taught her two children was do not touch anything on the street, for fear those objects could be mines or explosives. Last October, a 14-year-old boy died while walking on the backyard of his home in the Sumy region, which is constantly being shelled by Russian mortars. And so it feels like death can come at any time. As Oksana from Kherson admits to me, when I had to go to pick up a parcel from volunteers, I stood for a long time and looked at the sky. I had a constant feeling that drones could be flying there and something could be dropped on my head. I feel in constant danger. My life has frozen. Ukrainians have also kept their faith in victory, with many making donations to the armed forces and volunteering for the cause. My sister Svetlana recalls that in the first days of the war, she was in shock and did not understand what to do. And so she decided to cook, not just for her family, but for hundreds of soldiers. She now fries up steaks and makes dumplings and soup for the military in large quantities. Now I am always active. I can't stop and relax, she says. The war has sharpened our sense of time. People realize that the next shelling may be the last, but they want to live, they want to love, they want to wear beautiful dresses and go to a cafe for their friends. We have stopped putting off important things for later. We stopped planning for the year ahead, another friend Tanya tells me. We live as if tomorrow might not come. With the future seeming vague and ephemeral, many are choosing to do what feels important and to live in the here and now. They've learned to appreciate every minute of ghostly, peaceful calm. People are going to movies, concerts, and theaters. Of course, sirens often interrupt the performances, forcing people to the nearest bomb shelter. But when the alarm ends, many return to their seats and the show goes on. Ukrainians continue to plan important events such as weddings and refuse to postpone them. Families are still choosing to have children even if the enemy is shelling maternity hospitals. You might say that a person gets used to everything, and so it is. However, in the 10 years since Russia occupied Crimea and parts of Donetsk and Luhansk regions, Ukrainians have not gotten used to the death of countless children and adults, the torture of innocent civilians, the abuse of prisoners of war, point-blank execution for speaking Ukrainian, the burning of Ukrainian books, the lives of the Russian military who report on the destruction of a children's art club or a pizzeria as an important military facility. The abrupt end of some families' trees as young people die before having children. The abduction of Ukrainian children by Russians and their forces adoption in Russian families. Hitler and Stalin acted like this. Now Putin leads a country that has lost its morality and humanity. And now let me ask you a question. Would you have the strength to live like this? How long could you live like this? And on top of that, imagine what it would be like to feel that the world seems tired of you, to feel like nobody cares that you're scared, that your child is sitting in a cold basement for days, that your people are being killed ruthlessly. The war in Ukraine is not a reality TV show that we can turn off. It's a test by the Kremlin to see how much compassion you have. While Ukrainians have become familiar with terrible new norms, our death cannot become normal to you. At the same time, the West must realize that by providing Ukrainians with enough weapons, it will be protected. And Ukrainians' victory will bolster the entire democratic world.
Thank you, Lydia. The most amazing thing to me is the resilience that the Ukrainian people have under these horrific attacks. That they want to live life as if they can do all the normal things. So they're getting married, they're having children, they're going to theater, which is, well, it's amazing. But that is such a good way to deal with these circumstances. And the power of your writing has to do, I think, with the fact that you put faces on the Ukrainian people. You talk about your sister, Svetlana, feeding troops, your husband, of course, Alla, a girlfriend who is now a soldier, Alexandra with 2 kids. How are they all doing?
They like and they want to live in their country in peaceful time, and they try to do the best to stop this war. How they can do it? To help the Ukrainian army by money, by helping, by cooking, even cooking, you know. Ukrainians are very strong people, very brave people. But as you see in the news, the last 3-4 days, it were a lot of massive attacks on Ukraine, on different parts of Ukraine. We can't speak only about eastern part. It's all part. It's this night was attacked Lviv. It's the western part of Ukraine. It's a Stry. It's the western part of Ukraine. You know, so that rockets, they can hit every town, every village in Ukraine, and we can be in safe, but we won't live, we won't feel alive like the last day of our life.
I wanted to ask, we spoke about Paul was talking about the clash of cultures in Kenya. And I'm wondering if you could briefly describe the difference between Ukraine and Russia.
Oh.
I know it's a huge question.
It's a big difference. It's a big difference. But every time you can hear that, oh, you are the brothers or sisters of relatives. No, we're different. Also, we're different. We love freedom. We don't have a Tsar. We didn't have Tsar anywhere. We had a hetman. Hetman, it was like a head of a country of Cossacks. As you know, who is Cossacks? Is soldiers of 17th century in the Ukraine, Cossacks. It's were very free people, very impulsive people, and they voted for their hetman, hiding their hats to the sky, high up, yes, high up, and who had a lot of hats, he became a hetman. But when he did something wrong, also Cossacks can make the voting and to choose other one hetman. So we didn't have anyone Tsar in our country. We are very independent people. But Russian, as you see, they every time wanted Tsar. On the top have been a one man or woman who can tell you what to do. If you don't do your way good, correct, you can be in a prison. So it's not our story. We are very different. We like love. We like help other people. We are very diversity people. But not Russians. They like only that they used to do. And everyone have to do as they want to do. Is it?
Yes, yes, you said it well. Democracy,
Yeah.
basically.
Terrible question, though. Sorry, but I
Yes.
thought that was a terrible question you asked her.
Oh, why do you
Because
say?
there are people going through war, and I think there's a lot of hurt and a lot of pain, and so I think that question was quite triggering.
Well, I'm sorry if it offended anyone. I just wanted to hear from Lydia her approach on that, her point of view.
And I want to add, sorry for my interruption, but I want to add that it's not only this war is actual Russians against Ukrainian, because as you remember, it was USSR. You know this term in USSR, United Countries under the Moscow were. So Ukraine was a part of this USSR, but we didn't want to be a part of this country, USSR. It was occupied period for Ukraine. During that 70 more years, Russians tried to change us. We have to learn Russian language. They killed us by Holodomor, if you know this word. It's like famine. Eastern part of Ukraine, people didn't have any food because Stalin's regime take out food animals, wheat, all potatoes, vegetables. They took all from the people. People didn't have any food at their homes, and they died.
Mass starvation.
Yes, it's a big, big tragedy. But it was a way of Russians or Soviet people to to prison us. That we have to be fair, afraid of their regime, and we have to say, okay, we are Russians, we have to speak Russian, we will be like you, but no. We have this independence in our souls, and every time we spoke, no, we are Ukrainians. We are Ukrainians. We are from a Kiev and Rus. Rus, it's our native land. It's not Russian, because Russians became a Russia, like a name of Russia, only in 1772. Peter Great decided to rename Russian Empire. It was Moscovia. And he changed the name like Russia. They took our name Rus, R-U-S, Rus, and they add a new letters, Russia, yes, Russia. So they every time want to take our history, our people, our thoughts, and they show that it's there, but it's not there, it's our Ukrainians. And it's war in hundreds of years. Every time we want to show that we are separate from them, but they want our territories, they want our clever people, yes. It's a big tragedy.
Could you talk about the article that you recently had published about the theater company?
Yes, maybe you remember that situation. In the first days of the war, Russians occupied eastern part of Ukraine, and Mariupol was in a big problem. It's a big issue for people. They can't leave the city. They didn't have any food, any help, because Russian didn't allow a green corridor to help Mariupolian citizens of Mariupol. And a lot of people, their houses, their apartment buildings were destroyed by Russian bombs, rockets hits, and they have to go to the big and solid building in the center of Mariupol. It's a Mariupol theater. It's a very big building, and a lot of people thought that they can be safe inside building. And I know that they were waiting for help for this green corridor, for humanitarian help that Ukrainians or Red Cross could give them buses and help them leave the city. But Russians didn't allow to do it, and they were in this big building. It's were more than 200 people, because it was a list with the names of people. And I spoke with witnesses of that tragedy. I spoke with 3 or 4 people who lived in Mariupol theater. It is an artist of that theater, and they told me their testimonies, how they could survive. It was a big tragedy, yes. Russian planes bombed a building, so it's destroying building. We can't see anymore this building, but Russian builders try to build it. I don't know. It's a big, massive grave. I don't know how to make a new theater on the bones of people who was killed.
So you were saying that
Yes, I spoke
the
with
theater would play Ukrainian plays by
yes,
playwrights, and now the Russians wanted to take it over and do Russian plays.
Yes,
by Chekhov.
yes, because as a troupe of this theater, some people wanted to live with Russians, and when Russian came, some of the actors had to work with them. Other part of actors who can survive, they leave the city and now they are living in Uzhhorod. It's the western part of Ukraine. So they have their new troupe and they are playing on a stage of Uzhhorod theater. They have 2 days on a week to show their shows. It's Saturday and Sunday. And they are trying to show that, yes, our building is destroying in our city, Mariupol, but we gathering now in Uzhhorod and we playing new shows and we show our our possibility, yes, to live and to show their testimonies in one drama, Mariupol drama. It names such way, Mariupol drama. So other part of troupe now are working with the Russian director, and they are trying to rebuild this building, and they are playing Pushkin, Chekhov, Dostoevsky, you know, not modern shows. They are playing that authors who are familiar as a Russian big culture, but you know, in such way, this big culture is killing Ukrainians.
I'd like to ask if anyone has questions. Yes, at the back.
Yes. Hi, I just want you to point out, Lydia, 1,200 people took shelter in the Mariupol theater. How many died?
Oh, it's a very difficult question. It's occupied territory. We can't count bodies. So, as counted Associated Press, I think, they mentioned about 600 people. But you know, we can't, it's 2 years ago. So we can't count, and we can't identify the body. But I know that, and a lot of witnesses in Mariupol, they told that a lot of bodies are in the buildings, in destroying different buildings, apartment buildings. A lot of people are there. And Russians try to destroy this building, and it's like a garbage. So they didn't do any identified of these deaths because it's criminal story. They killed them. Do they want to show how many people they killed?
So it remains as a graveyard.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. I would like to ask, I did some political science and I did it in the United States. So you can understand my point of view here. Don't take it personally. In the world view today, what is being presented outside there is that it's an hegemonic. This war is about two powers. It's about the United States and Russia. But Ukraine is a battleground. Do you agree with that?
No. I'm not agree, because for Russians, it's a good strategy, as you mentioned. They are fighting with USA, but we don't have USA on our territory, and we have never had their soldiers, their
Armament.
our army. We didn't have them on our territory, you know. For Putin, for his previously leaders like him, for Stalin, every time they try to find enemy. We are fighting against . So you remember it also was like, we are fighting with USA, we are fighting with USA, we are fighting who is the best, who is the first in the space, la 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 la. But it's not that story. It's story about man, about country who try to change their story, who try to show like they are best in the world. And if Ukraine have such nice territory, such good history, so why we can take it for us? And we can tell about NATO. Finland is in NATO. It's a border with Russia. Why they don't fight with them? US is very, very far with them, but not Ukraine, because Ukraine it's like it's my big gift and I want this gift for me. It's sort of Putin. You have to understand and have to don't mix the story. But you know, yes, Ukraine now it's a shield for Europe, because Putin wants to go to the Berlin, to the Paris, to the other sea, Portugal, Spain. It's his dreams, and you have to understand it. It's not only Russia and US. It's very aggressive country with very destruction thoughts.
All right. I think we'll leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Lydia. The next performer we have up is Tien Providence. And he's doing a one-man play. So, Tien, if you want to come up. Tien is a playwright, an actor, a director, and producer of live theater. Since moving to Ontario in the 1990s from his home in St. Vincent, he has worked often within the Caribbean community with the St. Vincent Cultural Group, the Annex Theatre Group, the Fringe Festival. He was writer-in-residence at St. Chad's Theatre, directed the short film The Pickup. He directed his play Back Home at the 2003 Fringe Festival at the Art World Theatre, and again in 2019 at the Hamilton Fringe Festival. In 2013, Tien became the founding artistic director and resident playwright for Things Falling Apart theater productions. Sounds like a normal theater. And resident playwright for Things Falling Apart theater, and which mounted Just for a Moment in 2016. The Session, a play in 2013 and again in 2018, won the most outstanding drama in Victoria, BC. Since the COVID epidemic, Tien has remounted a production of Just for a Moment at Akai Studios in Toronto. Please give a warm welcome to Tien Providence. What can I do for you?
Just put the
Sure.
This one's there, so I'll use. This chair used to be my grandfather's chair. He used to love and sit in it and tell us stories, funny stories, sad stories, scary stories. We used to scream, me, my brothers and sisters, we'd all run off to our bedrooms, too afraid to sleep. But the next night we came back for another one of those scary stories. You see, those were the ones we loved the best. Especially the one about the larger blessing. Now she nearly catch him in her trap. You see, them larger breasts is real pretty woman. And it's always dressed up in a nice gown, nice gown thing. But it's only dressed up like that because one of their foot is a coat foot. So that is why they have to wear these long gowns. You see, it was a good thing he was a fast man in his days, else he would have got catch. One night he was coming home from a party and he saw this beautiful woman. Said she looked so good, I have to try something. So he stepped up to her and started putting some serious lyrics on the woman. Said, man, she was like butter in my hand as he began to walk to her house. He decided as they were walking that he's gonna make his hand fast. Next thing his hand was brushing up against the hairy thing. He said, wait a minute, there's no way a woman's leg's supposed to be so hairy. So out of curiosity, he pulled up the dress and he see the goat foot. Man, he said he'd take off. He never run so fast from a woman in his life. A man like he, who was known as the biggest woman chase in the village, was now running from a woman. We used to laugh every time until we cried whenever he told that story. Those were the days before we got a television and before he lost his mind. You see, once the TV came, we didn't listen to his stories as much. After all, we had something else to hold our interest. So after a while, he joined us, and TV became his comfort too. He used to love the old westerns. Oh, he loved those cowboy movies. Sometimes he would fantasize. And that is why my grandfather had a beautiful imagination. You see? And that's why it happened. One night, he and his buddies were hanging out in one of the local bars, having a good time, talking about the West Indies, the good old days. He used to love to talk about the good old days in the West Indies. I remember I used to go with him sometimes when he visited his buddies and get completely wrapped up in the stories. But anyways, this night, he and his buddies again were doing the usual thing, drinking, and suddenly some young racist punk came into the place and started making trouble. Started calling them old niggas and saying, why don't you niggas go home? Leave our country alone. Well, my grandfather was a very proud man. And nobody was going to call them niggas for too long. I wasn't there, but I heard he jumped into them like he was some kind of cowboy hero. He was well into taking care of them until the police showed up. And you know who got arrested? Sometimes in this place it is understood the black man and the white man get into a fight. Black man gets arrested without question. Being in jail broke my grandfather. He had to stay there for a while because Mom didn't have the money to pay for his bail. So he had to wait until she could borrow it. My grandfather, a man who loved his freedom, his own way, my mom would say. He couldn't stand being in a cell. He felt trapped like a bird in a cage. So he would cause quite a ruckus. That's another cowboy word. During one of these daily fights with the guards, he got shot. It left him partially paralyzed. The guard said it was an accident. but Ray believes differently. My grandfather became a shell. We couldn't reach him as he retreated more and more into his TV world. His favorite chair, this chair, was exchanged for a wheelchair. He would sit in it for hours in front of the television, sleeping and waking in front of it. We left him alone because we didn't know what else to do, and we couldn't afford expert help. So we watched our grandfather trying to reach out but couldn't. Sometimes I would cry because I missed him. I missed the stories. But most of all, I cried because I was unable to help. I felt so impotent. The neighbors said we should put him in a home, but we couldn't. We just couldn't. Early one morning, trouble came big time. Grandfather woke up in front of the TV as usual, but it wasn't working. Something was wrong. The cable must have been down or something. It just wasn't working. My grandfather started carrying on and causing such a stink. The more we tried to calm him down, the more he would cuss and scream. The neighbors must have called the police because they were soon knocking on our doors. They broke the door down, and two big, beefy white policemen entered with police sticks drawn. They had a "we'll take care of this" look on their faces. They ordered us out of the room in our very own house. Can you imagine that? We left. What else were we to do? I half closed the door and peeked through the crack. My grandfather had calmed down a bit as he watched the police advance towards him. I caught the glint in his eye, and I could just imagine what was going through his mind. He was probably in some kind of cowboy fantasy. The police got close and suddenly he lunged and screamed, "No, you'll never take me alive. I'll defend this town to the very end." And then he pulled out a knife. I don't know where he got the knife from. Maybe we forgot to take it away when we took away his tray. But it was in his hand, and he was holding it. He had a 6-shooter and he was making popping sounds. Pop, pop. The police started wrestling with him, and for a while all I could see was the wheel tray going from left to right, right to left. My grandfather was putting up a good fight for a half-crippled man. But then again, he was always a proud man. I smiled. I was proud of my grandfather. I watched as my grandfather pushed one of the policemen away from him, and suddenly shots rang out. "No, you didn't have to kill him! You didn't have to kill him!" We buried our grandfather amidst all the controversy. We marched and demanded justice. Big dream, but we still marched. The cop was charged after much demonstration, but it was all a sham. The trial was a travesty of justice, and the verdict needed no deliberation. When the expected verdict was read, the cop took out a cigar, lit it, and breathed a sigh of thank you, I suppose. Then he said, "I'll do it again if I have to. I'll do it again." What a thing to say.
Was this based on a true incident? I mean, things like this.
When I first moved to Canada in the 90s, there was a lot of police shootings, especially in the black community. And this is a composite of things
Right.
that happened. When I wrote at the time, I was working with some young people of Caribbean descent at a in North York region. So this was part of that study that we did. And we were able to perform it at the Alumni Theater in school. And to tell you the truth, this is the first time I ever performed it myself. But I usually had the younger people do it.
Right. It was very good. So thank you for that. I'm sorry, what was the location? Was it Toronto, or where would you?
Well, I wrote it in a space that it could be any place, right? Of course, the happenings were in Toronto, but it could be, you could place it in North America, you could place it in Vancouver or whatever, right? Like I purposely didn't put a location, so it can be read all over.
Right.
Just to note, it is published by the Playwrights Union of Canada, so people have performed it.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Congratulations on that. Are there any questions from the audience? Anyone?
Yeah, hi.
Yes.
Well, it's not so much a question. I just want to say, like, obviously, the story that you're telling is unfortunately just a timeless story, specifically for the Black community in relation to policing. And I just wanted to say, in your experience with how long you've been performing this piece and having other youth perform this piece, have you been able to see and hear any change from from your community and that community, or has it been disheartening to see that story still holds so much relevancy as we continue to see with police brutality and racism?
Well, in Ontario, it has changed a bit, for a little bit for the better. It also, as you said, by the Black community, but there was a young gentleman who was shot on a bus.
Yes.
One time, which someone related the story to him, because again, he was in a mental distress. That's the word I'm looking for. So it can go over to different communities, because police and humans, the other humans, usually have conflicts wherever it goes. This is just specific the way I said it, but changing a few lines in it would just switch it up and make it relevant to many, many communities.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, once again, thank you, Dan. That was good. We've come to the point where we're going to take a break for maybe 20 minutes. We'll keep moving along, but if you want to get drinks at the bar, or there's some food, I think, coming out. Hannah, is the food ready? Or Margot, or whoever might be back there. Oh, excellent. Okay, and there are, I did want to say something about the Uncaged Voice. We have a book by 15 of our Writers in Exile writers that we have for sale here. It was published by Cormorant Books before Christmas. And the sales have been steadily increasing, and we have a number of promotional opportunities for the book. So over the spring and summer, I'm hoping to see very good sales with it. It's called The Uncaged Voice. We have a number of books available here. You get a discount today, $25. It's usually $29.95, but it is a celebration of 15 of our former writers that have, all of them, I think, have been to these readings and done these readings, and we're very honored to use their work and have Cormorant publish it in a very just professionally done book. I'm really proud of it and proud of our writers. So if anyone wants to buy a copy, we have a few over here, just in the corner there, and you can come and get those. Anyway, let's take the break, and I'll come back in about 15, 20 minutes. Thank you very much. Howard, I think.
Finally got a hold of the projector, so.
You did? Oh, excellent. That's wonderful. Can I help or?
No, it should be very straightforward from there.
Have you communicated with?
I have. He wanted to. Is it you?
It's
Okay. I just wanted to make sure for the time. He was asking for an exact time. Be ready.
when you want to say.
Is he the first leader after the break?
Yes.
Okay. Let me set this up and then can I give you? Yeah. I'll introduce you to Keith after I saw it. I'll introduce you to Keith. Yeah. This camera?
Yeah.
Yep. We're good.
Yeah, good. So
Yeah.
you have my presentation.
I have
Everything is
everything.
ready.
Yes,
Okay.
but you're not. Are you next?
No. I am the last one, but I just wanted to know if you needed anything.
Perfect. No, we should be good. Yeah, we'll run through it actually before we start the next reader.
Okay.
Just so we can see how it looks, and then we should be good. I'm just waiting to hear back from him, and then we're gonna test out the connection.
Okay, super. Thank you. It's
No problem.
so great to have you on board. 'Cause
Next time we do this, I've been thinking about this for a while. I'm building a mobile rig that basically has all this stuff built into it, so I don't have to I have stuff at the studio, I have stuff at home, so there's stuff everywhere basically. So once I get that set up, it'll be a lot smoother.
Wonderful. We're actually doing we might be changing venues. We're doing another in October, November. Not until, so we're sort of taking summer. So we might do a bigger one at the library. Or we might come back to any kind of fun.
This is great. I mean, so what I'm starting out now is basically a mobile podcast. So that's what that system will be a part of. So it'll be like high def streaming and high def recording all in one unit, and that's what we'll get to the podcast at the end of the event instead of having to do editing which we've been doing. So I want to introduce you to Raven actually. This is my girlfriend.
So much about you. I've been at your cottage plenty of times. I've been, but I've never. Yeah.
I've heard of you. Your reputation precedes you.
Good, hopefully. And if it's not, I'm running out of here.
In a very good way.
This is Lisa May, our little baby that we got 2 weeks ago. Actually, are we going up to college? I was just gonna say, I think we were supposed to be.
I'm actually going up and finishing the novel that I've been sort of working on for a year and a half. I've got 4 days up there starting Monday night.
I have literally fallen in love with that one. It's like anytime Sean is like, yes.
Sorry.
He's always like, so Sean, I'm like, the words, yes, they left my mouth the second I hear Sean's word. But because I know we were going to bring up Lula, and I was like, Lula and Murph would be hilariously opposed to science.
This is one thing, I love Murph. 99% of the time I have a
I'm very good. I'm good. Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks.
The last one, that was really oh, it was the ice
Yeah, no, it's true. It's just those things, right? Like, that makes sense because Mark also was like, this is my foot, right? Like, she can't really go too far. Yeah, exactly. Mark is such a big alumna. But I've heard such incredible, I know you haven't been to Rugby, but it's just so lovely to finally make it to one of these. Like, I am just, you're talking about Rugby? Yeah, I know. And I got to meet your wife. She came up one of the days we got a nice pasta. But speaking of reputation, it's so great. He literally can do anything.
So that's partly why I wanted to stop in to see.
Yeah, please go talk. Nice to meet you too. There you go, Ann.
Is that?
You said to come up next time. Like,
yeah,
Is he on board? He's waiting.
I'm just going to double check. It's open within about 5 minutes.
It's not a comment. Why don't they give me word of that? Ladies and gentlemen, if I could just have a moment for your attention, we're going to start again. Excuse me, folks, we're going to start again in about 5 minutes. So charge your plates with some of today's wonderful food. The food that's available, you can bring it to the table if you like, or a drink, or whatever you care for. But we're going to start in 5 minutes. And we're doing a Zoom from Vancouver at that point. So I'll announce it in about 4 minutes now. 4 minutes. Am I best to like sit?
Yeah, so
I want to stand something like this.
you want me to face the mic to you so he can see you?
That's just for him.
That's for him, yeah.
What are they going to see?
They're going to see him. I'm just admitting him now.
Is this me? Testing.
Just one second.
Ladies and gentlemen, give me a little more volume. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to continue now, moving along. Our next, if you could take your food, by all means take your food to the tables and drinks and so on. And we'll get this, this is the second half, which we have 2 readers left to do. Hello, folks. Okay, if I could have your attention. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could go back to your seats with food in hand. The next reader is Diari Marith, who is currently in Vancouver. And Diari, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. Okay. This is a good image. I'll stand out of the way, and everyone here, we have a good turnout today, will be able to see you on the screen. And so Diari Marif is a Kurdish-Canadian non-fiction writer, activist, and freelance journalist with over 17 years' experience as a reporter, editor, and researcher. Diari earned a master's degree in history from Poon University in India in 2013 and moved to Vancouver from Iraq in 2017. He has been focusing on nonfiction writing and has recently written 2 book chapters for 2 different projects. Diari is a recipient of an honorable mention for the Susan Crean Award for nonfiction in 2022. He is currently writing his childhood memoir, recounting his experiences as a war child born during the Iraq-Iran wars. Please offer a warm welcome to Writers in Exile. What I was going to say was offer a warm Writers in Exile greeting to our friend from Vancouver. So, Diari, if
sorry, Chief, I didn't hear what you said. I can repeat the question.
Okay, let's get the sound right. Can you hear me now? Okay, excellent. Well, welcome. And if you would like to give your reading, we'd like to hear it.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Keith, for the wonderful introduction. Due to the limitation of time, I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm going to read the text right away, and of course, we will answer the question later. And thank you again. My mother rebelled, and here I am. One spring afternoon, many years ago, my family got together for tea and nostalgia at Sweet Olulu. My siblings and I talked about one of our neighbors' weddings, while my mother started talking about their plans to grow vegetables. Her topic was completely unrelated to our conversation. We rudely scolded her for not paying attention to us. We had no idea what was going on in her mind. That happened many times because her mind was somewhere else. We didn't know she was hurting. No, we did feel how much pain she was skillfully keeping inside herself. A few months ago, I had a long phone conversation with her, and I asked her to give me some detail to help me write one of my stories. She opened her heart and started talking about her precarious life during the wars and her sickness. My mother, Gerda, is the second child of her family. She was raised in Bardabal, a village in Iraqi Kurdistan. She didn't go to school because it was unacceptable at the time in her society. She spent her entire life in that village. One day, Gerda was told that her brother was going to marry a girl, and Gerda, in return, had to accept the girl's brother, Muhammad. Gerda was only 14. She was dumbfounded. To top it all, the tradition was that if my uncle had a problem with his wife or divorced her, Gerda had to be divorced too. So, Gerda was married. She gave birth to a boy, Sabah, at the age of 15. But, tragically, her husband was hanged by the Iraqi regime because he fought against it. Immediately after her husband's funeral, her father-in-law forced her to marry to his second son, as was the tradition then. He also forced her to pray 5 times a day according to Islam, because he hated Islam. Gerda refused his demands. She escaped. Her family begged her to return to her father-in-law's house for the sake of her brother, who was still married to that family. I'd rather die than return, she said. Her rebellion was successful, but it also marked the beginning of a never-ending journey of pain and sorrow. The price of her disobedience was way worse than she thought it would be. The first punishment was that she was banned from seeing her son for several years. Being a widow at the age of 16 in a conservative society was catastrophic. If you were a respectable woman, you wouldn't be a widow, she was repeatedly told. Gerda was a widow from 1974 to 1980. She was humiliated, and the quality of her life was deteriorated drastically. In her mind, remarrying was the worst that could happen to her. But she needed to regain what was deemed as a respectable standing in society. On the other hand, my father Khalid, who lived in the same village, desperately needed to get married. His cousins and friends had gotten married years before. But despite his attempts to marry, Khalid had remained a bachelor. He was a strong, supportive, confident man, but with a limited social skills. In contrast, The fragile Gerda was kind, sensitive, and unsure of herself. Both Khalid's and Gerda's families were neighbors, but neither she nor he had ever considered marriage to each other. As if, like an angel, one day Gerda's distant relative proposed that Khalid and Gerda get married, given their respective unfortunate unmarried circumstances. They both agreed enthusiastically. For this wedding, Gerda had no expectations. As a widow, she knew that she wouldn't receive valuable jewelry. All your uncle's brides were offered more gold than I was, she told me. A few days before the wedding, luck, as usual, was not on her side when one of her cousins was accidentally electrocuted to death. They had two choices: postpone the wedding or marry quietly without a ceremony. This was the custom and still is. My father was in a rush and chose the latter option. He was not taking any more risks. My mother was picked up by a car and taken to my father's house at dawn. The early hours of the day was not typical. I was like a construction worker reporting for work, not a bride stepping into her new home, my mother said. The bloody era broke out at the onset of their marriage. The area they lived in was at the epicenter of the wars, and they stayed underground for many days due to heavy bombardment. In the mid of 1980s, my mother was dealt with another cruel blow. Her two younger brothers, Abdul Karim and Hassan, were killed within 18 months of each other by Saddam's regime. She haven't even allowed to visit their graves. I wish I had died with them, she repeats every time she mentioned their names. The trauma of losing her brothers was unbearable. She lost part of her memories, the taste of food, and the joy of living. Around 14 years later, she still wears black clothes, a sign of mourning, and she has never danced. I was born between the deaths of her brothers. She hoped that my birth would bring her a bit of happiness to alleviate her pain. Instead, I became sick, and my sickness intensified her anguish. Later, my father had escaped when Saddam's army forced him to join the military against the Kurdish militias. When I was a few months old, my mother fled to a village and hid my brother and me in a Turkey van. After Saddam used chemical weapons in the neighborhood city of Halabja, killing around 5,000 people in 1988, we escaped to another place. Then, the Kurdish rose against Saddam and took over the Kurdish cities in north of Iraq in 1991. Saddam threatened to regain control over us. So, we escaped to Iran as part of a massive Kurdish exodus in 1991. When the United Nations secured a no-fly zone over Kurdistan, Saddam's threat and hold over the region were entirely removed, and the Kurds gained semi-autonomy over Kurdistan. We returned to our village, our demolished village in the summer of 1991, empty-handed. We faced harsh starvation because of the UN imposed sanctions against Iraq. In return, Saddam imposed sanctions on Kurdistan. By then, my mother was raising 9 children and managing to the household as she continues to support my father. Yet, generously, she provided our starving neighbors with food. She preferred to keep moving to deal with her difficult life. She sang the Kurdish song Hora, as a reflection of her sadness. As a sign of love and loyalty to her brother Abdul Karim, she kept his belongings, a Persian, Kurdish belt, and purpose. Sorry. She put them in my drawer because she saw a resemblance between my uncle and me. And I was born just one day after his death. When she would tell me to take a bath, she picked my clothes and she cried unstoppably each time. Why did you leave me alone? I wish I could meet you again. She kept saying as she cried. In 2003, Saddam was overthrown. My mother, like many others, thought we would have a better life. But the Kurdish government continues with Saddam's legacy of barbarism over those they govern. My mother developed long-term asthma and pain in her shoulders, knees, hands, and back. Due to the stress of the 3 previous decades, their health kept declining. The doctor in Kurdistan gave her the wrong medication, and a failed surgery on her throat left a scar inside. Despite her weakened physical state, she continues to encourage my siblings, relatives, and neighboring to keep going strong. She often gives portions of her food, money, and belongings to the poor. During the Russian attacks on Ukraine, she expressed her concern for the Ukrainian mothers who had fled to the neighboring countries. As war continues, thousands of mothers are displaced, and I see my mothers in every one of them. And I believe her story will inspire many. Since she reveals her ordeals to me, every now and then, when I think about her, I am deeply saddened. I close my eyes and imagine myself on their shoes. I hate those who have hurt her. However, she forgives them. She has already forgiven them without forgetting the pain. May God forgive them, as she always says. It seems to me that my mother's rebellious spirit brought out me to life. If she hadn't been against the societal norms, I don't believe I would ever have been born. Her rebelliousness influenced me tremendously as I have fought against corruption, brutality, and nepotism in Iraq. My life was at risk when I lived there, and I forced it to flee to Canada, where I still protest against discrimination and racism. I am extremely frustrated by what is still happening in Iraq, and I am not sure I will ever meet my mother again. But I learned from her to never give up. Thank you.
Can you hear me, Tiara?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Well, your mother sounds like a remarkable woman. She had terrible things happen, it sounds like, throughout her life. What are her living conditions like now? Are you in communication with her?
Sorry, actually, there's some interruption of what I couldn't understand. What was, you say, is she taking medicine and how is her health?
Well, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, I was saying that she's quite remarkable, and she would go through everything that she's gone through, all of the trials and the terrible events of her life, and she still feels forgiveness for those people that caused her situation, and forgiveness and generosity to those around her. But I was wondering, what is her current condition? Where does she live, and are you in communication with her?
Unfortunately, I cannot talk to her often because basically she cannot talk because, as I mentioned in my story, due to the failed surgery on her throat, she cannot talk now. But when we have like kind of Zoom call or WhatsApp on video, I know what she wants to ask about, and it's really painful. Just with like gesturing, and I know what usually ask about. For example, she asked about if I had good food, if I am healthy, if I'm safe, and I asked myself question and I answered on behalf of her. So that's a situation. I agree with that, but unfortunately her condition totally deteriorated now, and she cannot talk anymore.
Anthony, can we turn the camera around just to show the audience? Are there any questions from the audience?
Keith?
Wow.
Yes.
Great audience.
Did you say that there was a Susan Crean award that he won?
Yeah.
Could you tell me about that?
Oh, could you talk about the Susan Crean Award?
Okay, it's like an annual non-fiction and fiction conference in Vancouver, BC, particularly in Story City. There are around more than 300 writers, artists, and novelists apply for that every year. And fortunately, I was the shortlisted 2 years ago, and I was longlisted last year. And there are many great writers, as I mentioned, novelists and artists participate in the contest, and that really I enjoy to be part of the contest.
Yeah, congratulations on that. Any other questions? Yes. Yes. Raymond.
Can you hear me when I'm speaking
Yes,
now?
I can.
Yeah. Okay. I first of all just want to say how beautifully touched I was by what you chose to share, and I just felt that it was incredibly vulnerable while also educational, while also you really painted a picture for people who have not experienced that, and I felt very present with your mother's beautiful energy and personality and all that she is. But on the question part, I know that you said that her condition has deteriorated, unfortunately. But have you ever been able to share your writing with her? Is that something that you were able to? And at the time, was she able to share what that meant to her, whether that was painful or complicated or beautiful. I think that this room feels like you really represented her in a beautiful way, but also beauty has complexities in it when there's life involved. So.
Thank you for your wonderful word, and that's a great question. Whenever I write a piece, of course she cannot speak, she cannot read in English, and I tell her about the story, and I told her, she's my hero. She's the main character of my writings. I really go in her shadow, and all like privilege, of course, go to her. I'm the narrator, but as I mentioned, she's my protagonist, and I wanted my mother to be my hero of my stories, and she knows I try my best for her sake. Even today, before I attend this meeting, I sent my brother the link. I wish you could watch, but it's a little bit too late in my home country. Of course, I will tell her, and I will tell her about your wonderful work and about all of your support over there. Of course, my book is dedicated to my mother, and I am in a rush to finish my book and send her a copy if we can meet each other again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diari. I really appreciate you sharing this memory of your mother, and hopefully you will see her again. Any last questions? So thank you. We've really enjoyed this day. And thank you for being part of this afternoon. It's been great.
Thank you so much, and have a good day.
You too.
Thanks.
I would like to invite Pedro Restrepo. I love that name. Pedro's been with Writers in Exile for years, and a very supportive member, and very energetic and creative, and we love his stuff. Pedro is a Colombian writer, journalist, interpreter, and poet. He is the winner of the prestigious National Recognition in Literature granted by Colombia's Education Ministry in 2002. He is the author of several books, 2 books of poetry, a novel called Arcadio. He is also a polyglot of languages, a human rights activist, and a longtime member, as I say, of Writers in Exile. So welcome, Pedro. Pedro will be the last reader today, and anyway, thank you for your welcome to him. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. I am very glad and honored for being here. I also thank PEN Canada and my group of Writers in Exile for this event and for all the support that they have given us throughout these years. I would like to share. Okay. As you know already, I come from Colombia. Colombia is a beautiful country that went through very difficult times, almost 50 years of war, and that left many scars in all the population, many people in exile, also many wives, many orphans. So that work, as all things that happen in life, when we walk our path, whether we are like normal citizens that chase a dream, or activists, or human rights defenders, we tend to accumulate scars. And these scars become many times a heavy load. And This poem that I am about to read, the name is an excerpt of my book, Scars and Joy, that will be launched in November this year. So I am going to share it with you all. Scars and Joy. I bear my scars and wounds with joy. After all, I earned them all. I earned them both. They are the living proof of my clumsiness, of my heroic deeds. They are a physical testimony of my growth. Now, I bear my scars with joy. I used to be ashamed of them. I used to hide them all. Today, I bear my scars with joy, to celebrate the fool I was, to praise my role in life, to witness how far I have walked, to realize that soul will be gone. I bear my scars with joy. I can see them everywhere. They are on my face, they are on my back. Every year left a mark. They bled, they used to hurt. They made me cry, they broke my heart. They seemed important, they made me sad. But then they just vanished. They turned cold, dried, and said goodbye. They were a mere illusion, a trap. Today, I seek my scars with joy, with the happiness of a child who explores it all. I am not afraid of making mistakes. I am not mad of those who don't like me. I am not afraid of pain. I have no fear of tyrants. I follow no trends. I just live to grow, to follow my process in the day or in the night. I walk alone and fulfilled in richness, in poverty, or simply in the dark. And when the tick-tock of the clock sets in, I will leave this hammered temple where I live, this piece of land full of scars. I will leave it cold and stiff to burn. I will take the experience with me, the joy of having walked my path, the joy of coming back to explore again, to lighten my life with my inner fire. I bear my scars with joy. After all, I don't take them with me. They will merge in the wind when I am gone. So I encourage everyone to enjoy your path on your life, and to understand that everything we have to live is not always our decision, but all these marks that we have, these physical marks, are just physical. It's our decision if we suffer. Pain is part of life. Suffering is optional. Okay, next I would like to share with you, this is a beautiful place in Colombia. The name is a small town where my maternal grandfather lived. My vacation, I would go there to ride a horse, to milk cows, because he had several properties there. In Colombia, we had a terrible war that politicians made people pick sides, but these clowns that create the wars, these are just actors. They just sell and promote their own interests, and the citizens are the ones who die. They never go to the war. They just promote it. They sell it. They encourage people to get fanatic about the ideals that they promote. But really, behind one of the things that is terrible about life, about war, is that it's faceless. When you see faces in war, you see a tank was blown up, but behind that, you have a soldier, you have a mother, you have orphans. It's not what we see on the mainstream media, that we have to take sides. No, all wars are bad. All wars are evil. It's not part of our nature. So I realized that when I was a teenager. I used to go there. There was a beautiful, it was a beautiful region full of sugarcane. That was the main industry. And all of a sudden, there was an attack, at the police station. And like a couple of months later, I could go there and I saw the real impact of war. That region that I saw where the sugarcane smell flew all over the place was now a torn place with torn buildings and dead people. So I realized the cruelty of war, and I wrote this poem. The name is Nights of War. Nights of unending songs, of forgotten breezes, maybe of childhoods, maybe of lives. And the skies with the silent storms that hide their lamentations in the deceptive peace of the devastated fields. So warm with the taste of sugarcane, with still convey silhouettes of strange women. And the squalid dogs who barked dissonantly around the remaining lights, letting the shadows free where muzzles twitch, resolving their sense about that which is hidden in the fog. Nights of war, where the dead travels, lavishly adorned, arrogant and defiant, leaving its mark on us and on the stiff earth. Okay, next please. Okay, when I was like about 23 years, I wanted to buy a property to make a house and start to build a farm. So I went to a beautiful mountain. It was a location like this, and there was a place full of bushes that was on a hill. So when I saw it, I fell in love. And the owner looked at me like, is this guy high? Because I look at the mountain, wow, I said, wow. It was full of bushes, and the man couldn't understand what I was looking at. He said, I am just selling this piece of land full of vegetation. So finally I bought it, and I built a house on the hill. And that house on the hill, that man once called me and told me, Pedro, can we have a coffee? So I went to see him, and he told me, you know what, Pedro, now I can understand what you saw that day. If I had seen that, I would never have sold you that property. Yes, and that is something that one day because I used to sleep there with my dogs on the hallway, looking at this beautiful scenery, I understood what people who chase a dream really, really have. Is that we can see not only writers, human rights defenders, in general, the public, people, we can see things that other people cannot see. And it's worth chasing that dream. When a person, one of the things that inspired me a lot is the experience of my colleagues in Writers in Exile. You can see people that suffer torture, that saw a dream, because many societies don't even know what it's like to be free, to be able to express your ideas freely, to have access to education, to have all these things that we normally take for granted. And when you dare to do something like that in many societies, even in so-called civilized societies, you are scorned, you are laughed at, you are exposed to ridicule sometimes. But when you have a dream and you share it and you are brave enough to chase it, you create a tremendous impact in society. So I encourage everyone to chase a dream, and the dream of compassion, of a better society. So that's why I am going to read this poem. The name is My House on the Hill. It says, in my house of the hill, the wind blows, so audacious and intrepid, so free, so stiff. In my house of the hill, the wind blows, so ephemeral, so fleeting, so loaded with everything, so I'm feeling inside. In my house of the hill, the wind blows, taking everything with it, the mortal impurities, the prayers of the minister, the goodness, the heavy disease, the bacteria, the regrets, the dreams. In my house of the hill, the wind blows. Fortunate I am that it never gets inside of me. So whatever I have to live is something that I chose, that I enjoy. It doesn't have any impact. It shouldn't have any impact on me. I want to read this poem in Spanish now to finish my presentation, because honestly, I love it more in Spanish. The refrain, everything. It says, en mi casa de loma sopla el viento, tan audaz e intrépido, tan libre, tan yerto. En mi casa de la loma sopla el viento, tan efímero, tan pasajero, tan cargado de todo, tan vacío por dentro. En mi casa de la loma sopla el viento, trayéndolo todo, las inmundicias del mortal, las plegarias del clérigo, la bondad, la pesada enfermedad, las bacterias, los lamentos, los sueños. En mi casa de la loma sopla el viento. Afortunado yo que nunca me toca por dentro.
Thank you, Pedro. That was beautiful. Really lovely presentation. I wanted to ask, do you go back to Colombia?
I haven't gone to Colombia in the last 6 years. The circumstances that I faced that forced me into exile were quite difficult, but I don't see the situation has improved enough to go back.
Right, I see. Are there any questions from the? Yes.
Pedro, is your house on the hill still there?
Yes, it's still there. It's still there. And one of it's a beautiful question. Thank you very much for asking me that. When we chase a dream and we materialize that dream,
yes,
that is going to be there forever. Whether it's my property, it's not my property anymore, but that is a legacy that we leave. Yes, and one of the beautiful things in life is to plant seeds.
Oh, yes.
We will not be able to harvest that. Mostly we will not, but it's something that is there and will be there forever.
Anyone else? Yes.
Thanks, Pedro. Very great poems. I'm wondering what helped you do the turnaround from being so wounded and feeling your scars to being able to see them in a more joyful way.
When I was my story is very interesting. I would say that because when I was forced into internal displacement in Colombia. In Colombia, we had a terrible war. So when I was 11 years old, I was internally displaced with my family. My family was an upper middle class family, so I didn't suffer like many things that the general population unfortunately live in Colombia. But when I was forced into exile, when my family was displaced because the zone was full of war and internal violence, I had to relocate with my family in the capital of the city, in Bogota, and then I had to, after my father was killed, I had to go into exile. I was in Mexico for 2 or 3 years after I was in the States. There, I saw my life as an experience. Some people told me, "Wow, what a tragical life you have." No, I never thought that my life was like that, because when these experiences, I just saw them as experiences. Obviously, they left marks on me. They left marks because whatever you have to leave leaves marks on you. But I think one of the things that helped me is to see the goodness in people, because no matter the circumstances, you will always see good everywhere. I know that many people that are in conflicts, in battles, and everything, human goodness is greater than that, and you see it everywhere. You see what you want to see. If you want to see evil, you are going to see lots of evil in the world. But if you see goodness, you will find a lot. And I think that was what helped me during my process and my duel of being in the exile.
Thank you, Pedro. That was very inspiring. Very inspiring. Thank you. This was a great presentation to finish off. Well, folks, that brings us to the end of the program. Again, thank you for coming out and supporting Writers in Exile. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Tebede and Hirut for the food and the hospitality and letting us use this great venue. And I believe we'll do another one in another reading after the summer. We're taking the summer off, so it'll be in the fall or late fall. And we'll do another of these readings. But again, thank you all for coming. No rush, talk and socialize. And is there any food left? Or
There might be something. And
there might be
if
something.
you give me the mic for 1 minute,
Absolutely.
I will be very happy.
This is Tebede, our host and a wonderful supporter of Writers in Exile and so many other groups, the comedy and jazz.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you. I'm not good in talking, because I make the stage for people to talk, to tell their stories. So I got these 2 books was given to me. One is The Uncaged Voice, which is recently published, and another one is tonight at 7 o'clock. We're doing a book launch. My good friend, who has done so many poetry nights here, now lives in Montreal. He wrote a book, and it's tonight at 7 o'clock. But before everybody gets it, he also gave me a book. So in these books, I found some love. So I want to share that with you. So let's start with The Uncaged Voices. I hope I can read it correctly. Tebede, you have been a spectacular friend of all. Thank you. Your kindness and ongoing support is appreciated. Hannah. And then, dear Tebede, you are part of the big dream of the Writers in Exile. Thank you, Kazain. To Tebede, you have been such a great supporter of the Writers in Exile. From our hearts, thank you, Kid. So this is from The Uncaged Voice. That's a lot of love. And my friend Norm, before everybody gets the book, I think tonight I got the book, and there's some love on this one too, for Tebede and Hirut. Life is a mystery, but you have filled yours with music, poetry, comedy, and art. I am proud to know you. Norm Christoph. That's a lot of love, so I just want to share that. That's
good. Thank you for that. It's well deserved.
So you can stay for the book launch. No, the fun continues.
The book launch at 7. Okay, well, thank you, folks. We're going to shut down now, but stick around, socialize, whatever you would like, and thank you again for coming and supporting Writers in Exile.
Thank you.
Anthony.
Yes.
I hope, can we stop the...
Oh, yes. Sorry. Did it work out?
I think it worked out. Sometimes the screen...